Well, I've arrived yesterday in Germany here, and I must say that I've been very impressed with the commitment and energy that seems to be coming up in the Frankfurt Rhine-Main area towards the design capital year, of course, in 2 years' time. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing about the theme and how different communities are coming together here and see how we might chip in from Helsinki perspective. Yes, so I work as the Chief Design Officer at the City of Helsinki, and this is a role that is a kind of a cross-platform collaborative role that really brings together different departments in the city. So I'm moving across and bringing different teams and ideas together and seeing where we can have more impact with design and architecture. So I'm really trying to sort of figure out of course there's the strategic level in the case of the City of Helsinki, that what aims we have strategically, and then again mirror that with what's going on in society, what's going on in the departments, and bring people and ideas together and amplify something new in the cracks of the system, perhaps, in that sense. So it's much about being a change agent. That's a big part of my job, and perhaps has been of many jobs I've done in the past as well, about bringing people and ideas together at the right time and then catalyze something there. Well, Helsinki was like here in Germany now, you're preparing for the design capital year in 26. Helsinki was design capital in 2012, and similar to here, there was a really good process of putting that bid together and bringing the community together and the decision makers and all of that towards it. Let's do a joint effort around design, and many things happened around that, but perhaps really importantly, that strategic level of what design can do. Why should we be interested in design? Why should others than designers be interested in design? That started really finding ground in the city at that moment. That we are, in the case of Helsinki, it's the largest employer in Finland, so 40,000 people. We're delivering services, we're designing and building the city. That how do we do that increasingly working together with the people of Helsinki or visitors or whatever the case is? And then how do we bridge those departments together? So that sort of strategic commitment really started from the design capital year and has evolved in different ways since. Well, there are a couple of things that are important to notice. So first of all, there's political commitment. So Helsinki has recognized that importance of design in every single city strategy since World Design Capital. We have a 4-year cycle. So now we're into the 3rd city strategy. So highest level political commitment that Helsinki wants to continue developing how to use design. Then secondly, since that year, we've put in place different roles and structures and tools. So there's like the role of the Chief Design Officer came along a few years after the year, but then also there's we have internal in-house design teams, central teams who help the different divisions, and then their different divisions have their own designers. So we have a growing network of several hundred people across the city who work with design. And then thirdly, there's different kind of tools that if you're working in the public sector especially, it's very important that how do you, for instance, set up partnerships with external design agencies. So we have multi-year procurement agreements, sort of partnership agreements if you wish, and we're into the 3rd one of that now as well. We just started a new one, and we really try and help people who use and buy design inside the city to do it in an increasingly impactful way, and importantly share those learnings so that, let's say, education department can share with culture department or culture with social and health and so forth, to communicate within the city and to our external partners what we're learning from that work. Yeah, so today all of Helsinki is divided into their central administration of 4 different divisions. So there's culture and leisure, social and health, urban environment and education. And all of these use design at the moment. And that of course means different things. It could be redesigning a service, it could be something quite immaterial, it could be looking at something backstage in these divisions, or it could be something very concrete. One of like a key example, for instance, would be the Helsinki City Central Library, which of course there's one element of it is there was an open architectural competition. There's been the whole what does that building stand for? It has won several awards. It's an amazing place that the people of Helsinki love, and people from elsewhere in the world as well. Opened a few years ago, but then there's that element of how do we work with the different groups of people who use that library to really work the idea of the library of the 21st century. So we had huge amounts of co-creation work going into that idea of the library, which then the architects took on board to develop into the spatial program. And importantly, that hasn't ended there when the building is finished. So the staff and the people working in the library, this is a big central library, part of a network of close to 40 local libraries in Helsinki. So they are constantly reworking there how the staff works, what needs to happen in the building, what needs to be modified, so that that work of reiterating what a library can do in today's society, that continues. The building is now there, and the building has been designed in a way that can allow this iteration to happen. So things like that. Similar, so soon after the process when Helsinki started working strategically with design, the digital aspect has come in. We have a quite strong emphasis on reworking all things digital. Now that has of course meant also there's lots to do in the more kind of IT side of things and the digital infrastructure where there's lots happening. But similarly, one of the big areas where we, for instance, use service design or strategic design now, of course, is the digital sphere. One of the biggest examples in the last couple of years has been simply enough redesigning the entire website of the city of Helsinki. You can imagine what kind of an endeavor that is in the organization of 40,000 people and all these things. But of course, the kind of obvious result is a website. But what we did, we had a special team of service designers working with all the different departments, finding those paths and links that were not connected to our organizational or administrative divisions, but really from a more thematic, inclusive point of view, being as a kind of a beacon of user-driven development in the digital field. And importantly, yes, the website is now done, but of course the work doesn't finish there, and there's lots that comes out of these processes that needs to be leveraged out into other digital developments. Now, I've been inside the city now since the pandemic started, and I think this for me is actually one of the biggest kind of results. It's a cultural mind shift, if you wish, that whatever you set out to do, it could be a very specific part of some service, or it could be the general way how things are done, and how things are timed with those people who are touched with whatever the thing is that is being done from the city's perspective. I think we have come a very good way. We do quite a lot of work together with other cities in Finland as well, and share on this. And there's the level of maturity, if you wish, is quite good. There is a lot of work still to be done. It varies, of course, in different departments. There are areas like we are increasingly seeing that we can find more impact still in areas that touch many different departments that kind of fall between the administrative divisions. So for instance, a topic that I find really, really important at the moment is the well-being of children and young people in cities across the world. Post-pandemic, with all the insecurities that are going on in the world, we started quite a lot of work in this area last year in Helsinki, where we are looking at, for instance, the sense of security in urban public spaces. And you start breaking that down. It's of course about lots of stuff. It's about what's going on in the schools, how are we working together with families, how are youth workers and social workers sharing stuff, are they coming together, how can you start doing even seemingly small improvements in urban public space, but really growing that sense of belonging for young people. And in that sense, it kind of becomes not about just the individual, but of course about society at large. This is something that I think we all need to work on still more, and something that I'm certainly hoping that, for instance, World Design Capital alumni cities can, like here now in Frankfurt Rhein-Main and together with Helsinki, that we can look into the future together as well about these more. We are doing quite a lot of work in impact study areas at the moment, that how, for instance, the design projects that we do, that we commission, what follow-up is happening, how is the knowledge spread. And we have quite a lot of data already, but I think there's areas where we can improve still in the future. But then you have areas like we have, if 10, 12 years ago we invested in the design capital, there are other things that have come out in this recent process. So just this week, for instance, we have now launched the design competition for a new architecture and design museum in Helsinki. And this has been something that these were, of course, institutions that were very much part of the design capital project as well. We have had some of the oldest in Europe in both design and architecture and the collections that the museums have. But there's been for a while already a sort of will to do something that 1 + 1 is more than 2. And the city of Helsinki and the state of Finland and the two museums came together a few years ago to start looking at this. What could we do to elevate the, really create a public place, kind of a beacon project where you can look at the world through an eye of a designer, both to the past and to the future. And so that's moving forward. Just this week we launched the design competition for the building that will bring these two museums together. I was very excited about this Frankfurt theme, and I'm very much looking forward to learning more today here at the signing ceremony about that theme. It is, of course, of utmost importance in the world today, and they're kind of those two levels. There's that very global level about democracy today throughout Europe as well, that what does that mean and why we have to cherish it and be very mindful about what's happening around democracy. But I think the layer that then comes back to the cities is something that's very much connected to design. And that actually brings us back to the really everyday interactions as well. And to those very questions, how do our services work? Are people part of them? Do they belong? Do they feel part of, let's say, urban planning, for instance? Do they understand how it works? And do we time our kind of interactions with people correctly so that the here and now of the everyday life connects to, the bigger picture where we are going in the future? And I think design has an enormous role to play in that, and that's where cities can be a stage where we can really, really foster change. I mean, it goes really to that you don't need to bring the discussion even to design with them. It's the discussion about what you are doing with them and why it matters, and why it matters to be aware and have those conversations and hear people out. And importantly, of course, keep them in the loop about what has happened with that information and the experience that they have provided. So that they understand that why something goes forward. For instance, in urban planning, there's never one resident's view. It's not about, bring in the people's voice, there will be many voices and they will be contradictory as well. So the more people understand how the system works and how you can influence a given moment, you will give a better experience as well about why things are how they are. We've just done quite a lot of work on that actually, to try and really make the planning system understandable and depict it in a way, kind of the system itself, where both our experts and designers can better communicate with people about what happens and where, and then where we can better bring people on board at right moments in time. So that's kind of systemic design, but outwardly it's a communication tool, of course. Yes, I think that's crucial, that the designers are very good at bringing multidisciplinary teams together, and that's one of the things that we have to make sure that we can engage different people in these processes. It's a beautiful quote you brought out, and I think there are two elements in there that, in a way, also in the Helsinki Design Capital project, of course, there's we have a history and legacy to build upon that we have been able to both kind of amplify in what's going on now, and of course projects like the new Architecture and Design Museum are very much about bringing that heritage to today and translating it on to the future. But I think there's two things there. That one is, of course, where have we been able to do some radical innovations or inventions, use materials in new ways, really do something that sort of is new, like there's been all kinds of things to do with how, you know, wood has been treated or different materials in the past, for instance, in Finland. But for me, the key perhaps there is resourcefulness, and something that really matters in everyday life. I mean, that was the kind of ethos of the Helsinki Design Capital as well, that it's something about design touches all of us, and that whole ethos in Finnish architecture and design has been very strong there. They've been part of nation building and welfare state building from kind of day one, and that design is for everyone and can make everyone's life better. Yeah, what is the story behind? I mean, I think first of all, the materials, if you look, for instance, at the design students today across different disciplines and architecture in our design schools, this is one area where they are doing fantastic work at the moment, is all the material innovations. They are very mindful about where the world is today and what should we be doing, and how should we continue to use what we have already in better ways. And I think this ethos is very, very strong in the Finnish design scene. The colors, yes, it's true that there's been lots going on, and in terms of patterns and prints and how we might use colors in our different projects, there's perhaps a kind of playful undertone there amidst the sort of, you know, making the everyday life better, but there's that playful undertone there, which all the great masters of Finnish design have also reminded us about often, that remember to keep play in there as well. So Aalto University has come about in approximately the same time as for instance, the World Design Capital project. So before that, there was University of Arts and Design. There was the Technical University that housed architecture department at that point was there, and the business school, and these all came together to form what is now called Aalto University. We work very closely with them as a city on strategic levels as well, looking at fostering talent, how we can, ranging really from kind of what that means for the region. It attracts students from all over the world. Many of them stay in Finland as well, which is which is important. And at the same time, then we can go and work on individual projects with them in different areas as well. That element was very much, for instance, yesterday when I arrived here in the region, we were discussing this a lot. You have institutions here as well who are educational institutions, part of the project, and we really felt that that's an important element of it, to see how, for instance, those ideas are tested and brought across borders, and then how they are taken forward into the life of the city, and importantly, will be part of it also after their studies. So we try and do lots of things with them all the time. Right at this moment, for instance, we're just looking at a recently decommissioned 1970s power plant right in the heart of the city of Helsinki, really interesting building by architect Timo Penttilä. And we're doing lots of studies around it and the future possibilities. One as part of that kind of preliminary work, we just about to launch a series of designs that our students have been working on with us as well. I mean, the really strong idea there, of course, is that every child, independent of background, needs to have equal access to good education, and that is independent of where the school is, and it's free and it's for everyone. And this is kind of the carrying ethos in schools across the country. And in Helsinki, we are very committed to do that and see where schools are going. And there's all sorts of stuff happening, of course, in the world, and changing demographics, and how schools stay with that and live with that towards the future. But I think that is of utmost value, and I think really at the core of it, and I find that exceptionally important in cities. Now, design and architecture, of course, come into that in several ways. There's, of course, the design of school buildings themselves, and how you can use those environments, the buildings and the immediate environments, or the kind of city itself as a learning space, and how we can do that as part of schools that children start understanding different historical layers, or why something is how it is, and growing that appreciation and perhaps a motivation to become active members of that society themselves and be part of that. So that's one element of it. We have done for several years quite a lot of work around that kind of education in schools as well. But the other thing, of course, is more the sort of design thinking element, that how do you use these design tools and work creatively together on any topic in the school. And so we have several schools in Helsinki who are starting to do this already, and there's one school in particular. It's just an ordinary comprehensive sort of school, so ranging from small children all the way up to early teens, and all the different teachers are on board, and they are using their own model of design thinking to approach different topics. And they were awarded a thing called Helsinki Design Award in autumn 2023 for this work that they've done, tools that they've developed and shared with different teachers. And I recently visited the school and was chatting with the pupils there that what is it like? What is this design thing for you? What have you got out of it? And the thing that they really said there was like, okay, that we work in groups, we tackle different problems, and we have learned that we can do it together, and we don't need to be afraid of failing. That if we say at some point this is not the right direction, it's okay. We go back together and think about it again and start again. And they had really gained confidence from this. For me, this is invaluable. It's really amazing how that is happening. So that's how design can be part of schools as well. I love Helsinki, but I have lived in very many cities elsewhere in Europe as well. I was born in the UK. My father is English, my mother is Finnish. I was born in the UK. We moved to Helsinki when I was 4 years old So I went to school there, and I then have since, as an adult, lived in London and Paris and Milan, and so I looked at the Helsinki region from distance as well, and been very much involved in work in introducing it to people from elsewhere, taking people like yourself, journalists, curators, so forth there. And there was a point we returned from London to Helsinki now about 10 years ago. And it was quite a conscious choice as well of wanting to chip in and do my little part of how that region develops further. I love other places as well. Maybe one day we'll go and live somewhere else again, but there's something quite special about Helsinki that I really like. It's that combination of city life, and at the same time there's a very sort of nature element very close by. It's quite rare to get that in any city. This is a hard question. Many things are good. I'm an optimist at heart, and I like to see possibilities and opportunities and see the space for hope and building new things in things I do. I try to operate like that. But I think what I would say is good is that it's good that we are able to keep an open mind and a curious mind. And perhaps in today's world that is not always a given. So we need to be very mindful and conscious about doing that. But if you can keep that spirit up in Frankfurt Rhein-Main in the project, that will be good. Thank you very much. It was nice to have the chat.